It's to Hungary now, where President Viktor Orban is hosting German Chancellor Angela Merkel at this hour. The two leaders are in the city of Sopron. That's where Hungary borders Austria. We're getting these live pictures right now. They're on hand to attend events to commemorate a pivotal moment in the fall of the Iron Curtain 30 years ago. Now, on this day in 1989, Sopron was the site of a picnic, but not just any picnic. It was organized by the Pan-European Union, a group that supported civil rights groups in communist countries back then. Now, during the event, Hungary unexpectedly allowed hundreds of East Germans fleeing communism to cross its border without any kind of documentation. They then made their way to West Germany. It was the first rip in the Iron Curtain between communist Eastern Europe and the democratic West. Tens of thousands would follow in their footsteps of just a few weeks later when Hungary opened its western border. DW's Simon Young joins us now from Sopron in Hungary. Good day to you, Simon. Can you tell us what's happening where you are today?
Morning. Well, Brian, I think you can probably hear the church bells. As you mentioned, there's a ceremony about to begin in the Lutheran German-speaking church that you can see perhaps behind me. And Chancellor Merkel and Prime Minister Viktor Orban are due to address the congregation. No doubt, of course, they'll be talking about the events of 30 years ago, but perhaps also referring in some way to today's Europe and what those events mean for today. And later on, they'll be holding a press conference. It was hoped that the two leaders would both go to the border site together and see where those East Germans were able to escape in 1989. But Chancellor Merkel has a very full schedule today. She's taking off pretty soon to fly to Iceland for more talks with the European leaders.
Okay, we're getting these live pictures as we talk, Simon. This was the beginning of the end for communism 30 years ago, wasn't it? This pivotal moment on the Hungarian border. Can you give us a sense of the significance of these incredible events, completely unexpected 3 decades ago?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, the Pan-European picnic, as it was called, was intended as a kind of peace demonstration, really, organised by Western groups, but more importantly by oppositional groups, amateur politicians, local politicians here in Hungary who had said, you know, let's see what we can do to sort of promote the general European idea. And throughout the summer of 1989, the reformist government in Hungary was looking for ways to send signals to the West that it was beginning to open up. And its border had become a little bit porous. And as a result of that, you had some thousands of East German citizens who'd decided to take their holidays in Hungary, as they often did, but they heard about this planned picnic, about the idea to open the border with Austria for 3 hours to allow Austrians, that was the idea of it, to come through and meet their local friends and neighbours in Hungary. But a group of around 600 East German citizens seized their moment, rushed through the gate, and they were in freedom. The camera crews were there to welcome them and to see those pictures of people, many of them breaking down in tears with their unexpected sort of walk to freedom. And that was the largest group of people who'd made it across the Iron Curtain from East Germany since the Berlin Wall had been put up 28 years previously.
It's an incredible story, isn't it? And there's some real interesting coincidences now. 30 years ago, the current Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, was protesting against the communist regime in Hungary. Chancellor Angela Merkel was living in then-communist East Germany. Today, they're going to have talks together. It's not an easy relationship right now. What can come out of those discussions?
It'll be very interesting to see how directly the two leaders talk about that, because, of course, we talk about East German refugees in 1989, people who really didn't know where to go, how to get to a better life. And that's exactly the same sort of question as migrants we're seeing arriving in southern Europe today are facing. And, of course, Viktor Orban is leading a government which has refused to participate in a Europe-wide distribution of migrants and is generally sceptical on the whole idea of large numbers of people coming to Europe. Orban has blamed Merkel for opening the borders and so on. That's going to be a real point of tension. I think the Chancellor will have to say something, but how pointed it will be very interesting. But there are other areas too where the two countries need to work together, reforming the EU and, for instance, deciding how the EU should relate to Russia in future. Germany's been very worried about Hungary's close relationship with Russia, also about the development of civil society and democratic institutions here in Hungary. So there's a lot for the two leaders to talk about, not much time, and it'll be interesting to see how much detail they're able to go into on this historic anniversary.
On a very historic anniversary, it is. People in much of Europe, I imagine, remembering this day 30 years ago. Simon, thanks so very much for that from Sopron, Hungary.